Wouldn't that be appropriate? That would have
Yeah.
been, if only we could have planned that far ahead.
Well,
Not really
I
how we
actually,
roll.
I've been semi-researching that for a while to see how many
Uh-huh.
we could get that ties to like stuff from our generation, but there's not that
Sure.
many. It's only like a handful.
I see.
So I don't know. But yeah, that'd be great to convince folks that Cat never existed on our show, at least.
Who?
Not in life.
Who?
Exactly.
Ah.
Hey, everybody also joining us as we stream live on YouTube and Facebook. Let's see. Who can we say hello to? Owl and Miss So and Darth. And Kyle is here. Hey, Kyle. Who's not usually able to make it, I don't think. Hey, Kyle. Yeah, Kat is not joining us today. She had a conflict. And it is not Duran Duran related. So we forgive her.
She told me it was, but not
It
to
was?
tell you. Oh, damn it. She told me not to say that. My bad. Sorry, Kat.
You know,
Spilled the beans.
they've got to be doing some kind of private event, too, because I swear they had stopped touring.
It was. Anyway. Yeah. It was just for super fans.
Yeah. Hey, on today's show, you know what's interesting is like I feel like this episode, if we completely fuck up this episode, it feels less like it matters less. It doesn't feel official because Kat's not here. So
Kat's not here, right? Anything goes. Anything could happen, right? And if something goes wrong, we just blame it on, well, Kat wasn't here to make sure it all went right, right? So it's,
or upsets the balance of the
It's nice to have a scapegoat once in a while.
Yeah. She's usually the scapegoat. Hey, on today's show, John and I alone are going to be schooling millennials about Gen X. We're going to look at 5 videos at least from members of the younger generation that they've published on TikTok, invoking our good name. Not 1980s now, and not John or Will, but Gen X. And there's been folks, whenever they, it's almost like summoning Beetlejuice, right? I mean, if you say Gen X in a TikTok video, there is a Gen X creator that is stitching or doing a duet with that video and, setting you straight. So
doing a reaction to it. Yeah. There's usually a Gen Xer out there who's going to defend us, but today we're going to defend us.
Yeah. All right. We're going to do it in an efficient way. Since neither of us really generally waste a lot of time on TikTok anyway, we're going to do them all, 5 of them in one shot.
There you go.
All right, let's see what else we got to do here. Switch this screen. There we go. Hey, but before that, we're going to review current news story related to 1980s media, including the first video, the first video RPG. And I try not to use the word game twice, because I say the first video game RPG, but G is game.
Mm-hmm.
It's like saying ATM machine,
Or Chips Patrol. Right, it's one of those. Yeah,
exactly. I know what you mean. But the first video RPG is getting a digital facelift, and a whole bunch of Transformers news coming too. So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Hope you like Transformers.
All you can eat.
If you don't,
if you don't like Transformers, wrong episode for you.
Come on, John. You're feeling it, right? There's something off with this episode because Kat's not
here.
Yeah.
Well, of course.
I don't like
it.
It's
multifaceted. The one is anything goofy that happens, it's not Kat's fault, it's my fault. And so I don't have a shield.
Oh. I see.
And then I feel responsible to make sure that anything clever Kat would have said, I have to think of, or we miss out entirely. So
that's hard.
I feel the pressure. It is. It is.
I don't know if you've had this experience, but I've noticed this in my real life. This is honest and true. I always feel like hanging out with just one.
What's a real life again?
Hanging out with just one person. It could be great, You could be really great friends with somebody and have a good time. Mm-hmm. But you add a third person and something more magical happens. And I don't know, there's something more, something in the chemistry or the alchemy, that mix of 3 people.
Yeah.
I think in part it is that 2 of you could perform for the third and then it switches.
It's like that leapfrog effect. It's like, you're the 2 for 1. You have that kind of thing. But if ever there's a lull, and sometimes you'll have, every pair have their own connections usually. Like these 2 know each other from work, and these 2 know each other from the club, and these 2 know each other from, from scouts or whatever, different things. And you have your own little connections. And so there's always something interesting to learn instead of just what you 2 have in common and can talk about. You can listen to what the other 2 have in common. And I do that with you and Kat because you had the background that you went to school together. So I didn't know that part of your life. So sometimes I learn more about you guys listening to you interact. And so there's that ping pong effect that you're lacking when you have just the, I guess just the pong effect. Beep, boop, boop, just left and right. That's all you got.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That was clever. And now I'm going to make sure that we can hear the silence that would otherwise be filled by cat's laughter.
And go.
Hey, Marty McFly says Will is all flustered. It is off-putting, yeah. Owl says missing her laugh already, and Miss So says agreed. Will, threesomes are the best. Yeah. Oh, good. Yes. That's a whole other episode.
I prefer a one-some. That's my preference.
One-some? You're not doing a one-some right now, are you?
No.
Hands on the table, John. Hey, before
you can't see the table.
Or you put your hands up and the table just starts rising all by itself up and down. How is he doing that?
Impressive.
Yeah. Hey, before we get started, though, a quick announcement. Available now for your listening and viewing pleasure, it turns out. I had the chance to be a guest. It was my honor to be a guest on the post-finale podcast, which is an audio and video podcast hosted by a young man named Ankit Madira. And Ankit he's a self-professed guy who's hasn't seen a lot of movies. Somehow they just missed him in younger life. And he and I talked about it. I don't know if it made it in the show or not. We talked about it a little bit more because he says, in part, it's because, he saw a lot of Bollywood films and not necessarily Hollywood films growing up. So his friends, I think he grew up in the Seattle area. So his friends, had a different cultural point of reference than he did, being of Indian descent and his parents raising him on the films they loved, which were a lot of Bollywood movies. So he has this show where he said it, and essentially was sort of did it out of necessity because his friends are so often bringing up movies to him that he said, I'll watch them, but let's make a show out of it. So he watches.
So he's capturing his experience of seeing these films he missed and preserving it for posterity in these shows. Is that what's happening?
Yeah, sort of, because he watches them and in very short order gets on and records with somebody who's there to talk about it. And usually the person he's talking about is someone who brought him the movie or likes the movie a lot, so they know it well. But he's reacting it to the first time, like he's just seen it, so fresh out of, Anyway, we talked about, at my suggestion, I asked if he would be interested in talking about Joe versus the Volcano, which came out in March of 1990. Yeah, but it's a very, it was made in the 80s and has a lot of connection still, to that decade, of course, to our decade. Anyway, are you a fan of that movie? Did I ever ask you this?
You have not asked me that. You have mentioned before that you enjoy the film. I'm sure, look, it was 90, and so that was good, like junior college, and we were going to the movies all the time. So I'm sure I saw it in the theater, but it's certainly not one that I've gone back to time and again. It's one that I probably saw in the theater and never again. So I don't have a really good, like Kat would go, I feel like I saw it, maybe, put it on my list kind of thing. It's that kind of, I have the Kat effect that I have for Joe versus the Volcano.
Okay. Well, and I'd be curious if folks in the chat have seen it too as well. And look, I told this to Ankit, I tell this to everybody, and Kat knows this too. I have used it as a litmus test for certainly potential, romantic partners
or mates, right? Yeah.
But also friends. And so you get a pass because you don't recall it in such a way you can even say whether you like it or not.
Right. I wouldn't say yay or nay.
Yeah. But yeah, there's something about it. Anyway, check it out. It's called The Post Finale. It's on YouTube. It's on podcasts. I like this kid, so let's help him out. Let's help him get this thing going. All right, and speaking of getting going, let's get going ourselves. Marty asks, wait, did Will just say he can't perform unless it's a threesome? Yes, sort of, right? You need an audience, right? You need an audience to perform anything, any type of production.
Yeah. Hey, look! I see my buddy Jason made it to the live stream. Hey, Jason.
Hey, Jason.
He was eager to watch the show that we were going to do at a different night this week, and then he said, "Did I miss it?" I said, "Oh no, we had to move it. Yeah, because we had a scheduling conflict." But he made it. Hey, Jason.
Good. Hey, yeah. Hey, let's see. Hey, first up in 1980s news, Wizardry is being remade by Digital Eclipse. Wizardry, the full title being Wizardry Proving Grounds of the Mad Overlord, although that wasn't the first name in development, they changed it to this. Anyway, it's generally agreed to be the first ever RPG, as I teased earlier, and it's certainly the first I can recall ever playing. It's Dungeons and Dragons. They took Dungeons and Dragons, that sort of mechanic, and the creatures, the treasure, the classes of characters you could be essentially, and put it into a video game. And in 1981, when it came out, it was groundbreaking and fantastic. and I had it. Did you ever play this game?
Oh, of course. Yeah. Yeah. I probably played more of, there were several series out at that time. There was Wizardry, there was Ultima, there was Fantasy with a PH, Fantasy. And I probably played more of Ultima than the others, but I played them all at one point or another. And Wizardry is one that a lot of my Apple friends played more than I did. 'Cause I think it might have come out on the Apple first, or maybe it didn't get ported until later to some other platforms, because I didn't have the Apple. I had the Atari computers. But yeah, its legacy precedes it as everybody like, oh, Wizard, you just say it. Anybody that played it the day, their eyes light up. They go, oh yeah, that. I spent so many nights in my bedroom by myself fighting orcs and spiders and hobgoblins and whatever. Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah, and I didn't. You're right. It came out in '81, and it was first released only on the Apple II, and I had an Apple IIc. Yep. It was later ported to a bunch of other systems, but even in Japan, they released it on Super Famicom and Game Boy Color eventually. But I didn't play it alone. I was lucky enough to have a good friend of mine who we had come up together playing Dungeons and Dragons together. So it probably right around this time, I don't know, I want to say 80, 81, 82. We had the red box that we saved up and got at Toys R Us. And we would play, the campaign from that and some other modules that we got. And so when
I love that you call it the red box. Everybody, without checking each other's notes, all call it the red box or the blue box or whatever. I love that everyone has the same experience and the same nicknames for things, even though we didn't cross-reference it.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, yeah. And I always say this every time I bring it up. I have my dice. They're on a shelf right over there. From that.
So do I. They're on a shelf over there. Absolutely. The ones you put the crayon, you colored in the dice with the wax crayon.
Think about it. Those dice are, over 40 years old, and they've got over 40-year-old crayon in them. I had to redo a little bit of it, but recently. But yeah, so when Wizardry comes out, it's like, oh my God, we don't even need a dungeon master. We could just play this. So, and I used to be the DM, and it was fine, but I didn't get to enjoy it the way they did. I enjoyed a different aspect of it. So when this came out, hours, like you said, hours. So I wasn't alone spending hours, but we were in my basement where my computer was in this,
nice room
that wasn't completed. It was kind of part cellar, part basement. Yeah. And wonderful. Hours. And I was the guy because I was so, what's the word when you, I was going to say maniacal. When you approach methodical. Both?
What? Could be both. Sure. Yeah. Why not?
Both. I think you're maniacally methodical would be my guess about you.
Oh.
But
well, is that like alignment, like chaotic neutral and lawful evil?
Yes.
Is that
in real life? Yes, it's a real
maniacally methodical.
Yeah,
it's like chaotic good. What is that? That's great.
anybody who gets aroused at spreadsheets, maniacally methodical. There you go. See the table.
There it goes.
And what I did, my job was self-appointed. I got graph paper, because we had graph paper from in elementary school or something, and I would map out the dungeons as we went. All right, we went 2 across, So you could know where to go back like that. You're being chased by something. All right, go turn left, turn right, go right. That was a lot of fun. Anyway, so it turns out this game, which I didn't know at the time, was created by Andrew Greenberg, who was a college student in Cornell when he first came up with this idea and started programming. And that was in 1978. And by 1979, he had a working model of it that was being played by his classmates, and they thoroughly enjoyed it. And he teamed up with Robert Whitehead. Robert Whitehead. I know I got it written down.
Bob Whitehead. That sounds right. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Long-time developer.
Who I didn't realize this. He co-founded Surtech, which is the publisher of the game.
I didn't know that.
He co-created or co-founded Surtech with Norman and Robert Surotech. Their name is Surotech. It's right in the name. Anyway, one of the things that the publisher, their financer, who was their father, I think, the Surotech's father, insisted on was that they do very professional looking packaging. And oh my goodness, do you remember that box? It was black with like a raised foil dragon. The lettering was like foil, and oh gosh, yeah, really. It
looked like it was the real deal. Like you would not have known it was programmed by a college kid. Which, in hindsight, most of the best stuff was programmed by college kids back then anyway, because making games wasn't a job. You didn't get paid really to do that. So nobody knew how to do it. It was really people with near infinite free time or time to waste not going to class would do those things. And now it's, of course, a career, and there's a college track you can take and all of that. But turns out I'm finding a lot of my favorite games from back then. Yeah. Kid in his spare time, 17 years old. And because he could dump, 20 hours a day into it and not be tired, unlike
Yes.
like an adult.
And a love life. You could just dump that too.
Then who needs that? You
Anything
can have that
social.
anyway.
Yeah,
No
I don't need
loss.
that. But think about this packaging, and you're talking about Ultima. So many games that era just came out like in a Ziploc bag. You have all the floppy stuff in there with like a photocopy of the instructions folded up.
Yep.
So this was top notch. Anyway, Digital Eclipse is the developer right now that's giving it a digital this game a digital makeover. And according to the studio, it's actually built directly on top of the original game. But it's they obviously they can do. They made and the graphics on the original are as low tech as you can imagine.
Yep.
But they're bringing that all up into like full res graphics, 3D images of the dungeon that you crawl through. But in addition to the visuals, they're going to remake some of the or improve some of the features, including how the party management is worked, the navigation, the spell casting, the movement, combat, sort of like that. So I haven't played it yet. There's a beta that's available now on Steam, but the full version after they get through this is going to come out sometime this year, and I think I'm just going to wait to play it then, when it's expected to be available on other consoles as well. Fingers crossed.
Digital Eclipse is now not say now, for a long time now, for probably 15, 20 years, they've been well known for game preservation. And it's one thing to go, hey, we slapped an old game on this thing it'll run on. It's another thing to the presentation and the attention to detail that they do. And because of all the work they're doing, last year they were purchased by Atari. So Digital Eclipse is now owned by Atari, but they continue to give them the autonomy to do things that were not, like Wizardry, that were not Atari games. Oh. So they're not hamstrung by being Atari, but after the work they did on that 50th anniversary package last year, Atari said, well, what are we doing not owning these guys? And so they have more ammunition. They have more horsepower behind them to do the projects they want to do, and they do great work.
That's awesome. I love that they have that freedom still. And I haven't seen it, but in learning about this, I learned that they also did an interactive documentary for the making of Karateka. Oh my God,
Karateka. It's so good. It's so good.
Okay.
This is a game you download and play and weep, because it's not a game. It's an interactive documentary that includes like Jordan Mechner, the creator of Karateka, however you want to say it.
Yeah, we say Karateka.
Like his notes, his scribbled diagram, interviews with his father who wrote the score and talk about what they were doing. And like the rotoscoping he did, like when the guy climbs up on the ledge, it was actually his dad climbing up on the fender of their car. They filmed it with the old, it's so good. And it's a story of a young man wanting to follow a dream he normally wouldn't follow. He wasn't doing well in school, but his dad saw his passion and he said, if this is what you love, I'm going to find a way to help you do it. And it's a love letter to him and his father and his family and what good work he did. And it's captivating. If you don't have it, get it. You will cry. And then you'll play Karateka.
You sold me on it. Like I said, I love the original game. So that'd be very cool.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to play the beta, it's available for $30, like I mentioned, on Steam. Oh, and also on GOG, Early Access. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, GOG. Good old games.
Yep. Good old games. Okay. Hey, in other 1980s news, as reported by comicbook.com, a Transformers event is coming to theaters. Yeah.
That's my
Autobots roll out. In addition to the many great films and songs turning 40 this year, this just crept up on me. I didn't realize this, but the animated Transformers is celebrating the milestone as well. And in connection with that anniversary, Hasbro has a special treat in store for longtime Transformer fans. Are you a longtime Transformer fan or a long ago Transformer fan?
No.
Okay,
as an old, it's not a don't like Transformers. It's I was an older Gen Xer, and it was kind of it was the later end of Gen X that got into that. So what was it, 83, 84? We just said 40 years, 84.
Yeah, 84,
right? So I was junior in high school, something like that, sophomore in high school. I moved on to computers by then. And so I was programming computers. I wasn't watching cartoons as much, but appreciation for Transformers and watched plenty of it, but it's not like I collect them or anything. So yeah, I know what a big deal it is to have these voice talent together again.
Yeah, what you're referring to is not only they're going to show the first 4 episodes in theater, but and it's going to be certainly it's going to be throughout the U.S. and the U.K. and other places throughout the country. But for the first episode with the pilot, they're actually going to do a split screen where on part of the screen you're going to see the table read that includes the original voice actors. That's awesome. That is pretty cool. Yeah, I dig.
For anybody that's a fan of anything, seeing how the sausage is made can be so fun to go, oh, I've only ever seen it this way. And now like you turn and look at, behind the stage and find out the people working on it. And it's, like I said, not being a super fan of Transformers, I can definitely appreciate what this is going to mean to people who are.
Yeah. Yeah. And not like real sausage, though, right? We've talked about this before. It's a horrible metaphor.
The metaphorical sausage, yes.
You don't want a general. All right, yeah, there you go. Anyway, not only that, like as I mentioned, after the pilot episode, you're going to be able to see that the second, third, and fourth episodes without the benefit of the table read, but you'll be able to. Let me turn this off. Be able to see the second, third, and fourth episodes without being able to see those table reads. But hey, what are you going to do? It's still going to be pretty.
Yeah.
According to the official press release, they write, quote, the Transformers animated series catapulted the imagination of fans of all ages, unless you were John's age or older, when it premiered in 1984.
Most ages.
Introducing a timeless battle between good and evil, fueled by action and adventure. Ask any longtime fan, and they could probably tell you where they were when they first heard Optimus Prime's iconic phrase, Autobots, roll out.
Roll out.
That was a pretty good Peter Cullen, I think. But anyway, fans who go to see this are also going to... I do. I'm the only person who's going. Someone's got it. Fans who see this are also going to get a sneak peek of the animated series Transformers Earthspark during the event. Tickets for Transformers 40th anniversary event are on sale now. And I didn't realize, look, that story comes out. So like we do, every week, we see one story. So we say, well, this makes me curious about this other thing. So you start digging in. So much Transformers is happening this year. Of course, probably because it's the anniversary.
Yeah. I have to interject in here, say, you had to talk about how good your impression was. That's what Kat would have done. She'd have went, oh, that's great. And so I missed on the beat. I didn't compliment you. You had to compliment yourself. It's just a missing cog.
I see. So I did the Kat role. You were able to maintain your own role. But at other times, you're going to do both, too, and then I could just be me and vice versa.
We have to hand off. Yeah, we have to hand off. Do our best.
Yeah. Darth Baca says, I'm a longtime Transformer fan. And Darth gives a thumbs up. Thumbs up emoji, which we're going to talk about a little later. That might be offensive to some people. I don't know. Younger people.
Yeah, passive-aggressive boomer.
And Miss So says, totally understand, John. My brother and I were still in elementary school when the cartoon came out. That was the age range it was aimed at.
Oh, yep. And a little older. I think a lot. Was it mostly aimed at boys, like a He-Man was?
Yeah,
I just think cars and helicopters are probably aimed. I'm not saying we're going to box it off and require it, but I feel like that show was aimed at young boys because it was, it was robots and fighting and cars and stuff. So I always assumed it was.
Yeah, I'm not sure why you're bringing that up at all, though. But yeah,
well, because Miss So said they were young and they watched it, so there you go.
Yeah, and of course the fact that it's aimed at anything doesn't mean that other people don't like it, but you know that.
No,
right, of course, obviously.
Yeah, and Kat would have mentioned that, so I brought it up.
Yeah. Yeah, Kat would have explained that her brother watched it.
See?
And then she would have talked about her brother, who's not on the show, Kat. Want your stories. Sorry, that was a little passive-aggressive. Hey,
it's okay.
But
thumbs up.
My point is... thumbs all the way up.
I'm starting to get it.
So my point was going to be that there's a whole lot of Transformers stuff out there coming this year during the 40th anniversary, including... okay. So this is what we got to do, everybody, right? Tomorrow, the trailer for Transformers 1 is coming out. But this podcast episode is going to air Monday. So I'm probably going to leave this on the show. I'm probably going to leave this on the show.
Of course. Why edit this out if it doesn't make sense?
But I do all that work to leave this stuff in.
Yeah.
But we don't want to seem like we missed a scoop. We're talking about Transformers, right? So it will be dumb or seem like, journalistic negligence that this comes out on Monday. We need to talk about a thing that just happened 2 days ago or 3 days ago. So let's pretend we just saw...
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
No one's going to accuse us of journalistic anything. Don't worry. You're going to be okay. It's not a real concern you should have, but I get the angle you're coming from.
We're hoping they throw journalistic anything. You're right.
Yeah,
journalistic shitheads would we take it?
Right. Actually, journalistic negligence would be a compliment because at least they're acknowledging our journalistic qualities that are poor.
Our response would be, thank you.
That we appreciate that.
Right. So I'm going to
always
say
serve
it like
as a
this.
bad example.
So, hey, just last week, the trailer for the forthcoming animated Transformers movie, Transformers 1, premiered. What did you think about the trailer, John?
Well, it came out on Thursday, and I couldn't wait to see it, and it was everything I hoped it would have been.
Me too. Lots of robots and things changing. And cars and things.
All safe bets.
And that one twist. I can't wait to see how that works out.
That was groundbreaking. I can't imagine what they're going to do with that.
Mm-hmm. So, look, I didn't know this movie was coming, but it's an animated prequel to the Transformers that we know, the canon that we're familiar with. What's a little confusing to me is it seems that even though this is animated, and it's animated in a computer, it's not traditional cartoons like the TV show was. In fact, Lucasfilm is the one who did the animation. They're the ones who do the special effects for the CG for the movies, the Michael Bay films, and those spin-offs, etc. It's a little confusing to me because it seems like this is a prequel to the films, not the cartoons necessarily, based on what I'm reading.
Oh, to the Michael Bay film. So an animated prequel to those. Yeah, I mean, you know what we haven't seen in Michael Bay's films is any sort of origin story. We know the origin story with the Allspark and the war that took place but we don't. Everything takes place after that. We saw that in the cartoons, I guess, both in movies and in flashbacks, but not in the Michael Bay films. They tell us when they get here, but we don't see it.
Yeah, I have a problem with those films. The first one was almost great. There's so many things where I was like, why did they do this? And I did a little reading about it, and it turns out Steven Spielberg, who produced them, who's the executive producer on these films, which shocks me. But he's the one who hired Michael Bay to do it. But Spielberg the first film said, you know what this should be? Let's keep it simple. It should be a story about a boy and his car. It was going to be the boy and Bumblebee. If we can focus on that relationship developing through the arc of this, we'll be good. It'll have a heart and all this. Michael Bay gets involved and wants to make these, commentary about war and all this other stuff. So, and Michael Bay wanted to make even more aggressive film than that, apparently, but he then visited the Hasbro offices somewhere in the Northeast, I think. And he had a change of heart. So he did soften it and bring it more closely aligned with what we were familiar with. But Spielberg, I think, had it right. The cartoons had some kind of heart to it that first movie didn't. And subsequently, they just kept going further and further away from anything that resembled a Soul Heart or Soul. Yeah.
There's something to be said. I know people that in the day cried about a cartoon robot dying.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, more than a couple people. I mean, there was a heart to it. And like you said, with the first film, there was even a standalone Bumblebee film a little bit later that kind of did that again. But more often than not, I haven't seen the recent ones, but I see the trailers and it's 800 robots turn into 800, rhinos and whatever monsters they turn into, and sometimes cars and sometimes fish. And it's chaos on the screen that it's digital noise that I'm like, well, in between there is their story. I haven't seen the more recent ones, but the early one, I would tend to agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah, which is a bummer. But what's interesting is we talked about how much we loved Godzilla X Kong. I don't know how you call it. But the latest Godzilla film. And it was giant monsters fighting giant monsters. And there was something about the way they presented it where it worked. But these Transformers movies, which are, and maybe it's because they're mechanical, they're not organic, but it doesn't work on the same way.
Any kaiju movie where you take time out of the story to perform dental surgery on a giant monkey, it's clearly slowing down and giving you a beat to get to know these people.
That's like the save the cat moment.
It's a thing that literally happened. That Kong had a sore tooth, and so he came through the portal to lay down on a mountain, so a guy with a helicopter and a crane could pull a tooth and put a titanium one in for him. But it had a baby Kong. It had those little beats that weren't about the people. Yeah. There was a small roster of monsters that you got to know a little bit in there. It's that same kind of the good guy, get to know them, root for them kind of thing that when it's a war movie, it's harder to do. You're rooting for the side, not for the individual, which I think Godzilla X Kong did pretty well, you know?
That's interesting. Yeah. In that sense, there was a more human sort of, and look, gorillas are very similar to us in many ways, including the way they socialize. So yeah, there was a more relatable, smaller feeling, personal type story.
Yep.
Anyway, so yeah, this is what they say. This is described as a quote origin story set on the planet Cybertron and will center on the relationship.
Awesome.
It will center on the relationship between a young Optimus Prime and a young Megatron. Oh boy. Anyway, it's going to be. I mean, it could be great. It could be great, but I don't know.
Oh.
It's going to be directed by Josh Cooley, who the only other directing credit he has is Toy Story 4, for which he won Best Animated Feature, at the Academy Awards.
I'm hoping that's a pull quote on the DVD cover. It says, "Oh boy, Will, 1980s now."
I mean, maybe after I see it, I feel differently. But right now, I don't know. Anyway, but it also includes just a bevy of a veritable bevy of talent, but not Chris Pratt. But that said, they do have a Marvel superhero actor. Chris Hemsworth is playing Orion Pax / Optimus Prime. So I guess being an origin story, he is Orion. Somebody knows more about Transformers that's on here than we do. Becomes Optimus Prime. But you got Brian Tyree Henry plays D16, who I think becomes Megatron based on this. Scarlett Johansson is Alita 1. Keegan-Michael Key is B-127, who is Bumblebee ultimately. John Hamm as Sentinel Prime and Lawrence Fishburne as Alpha Trion. It turns out
some good voices in there.
Yeah, and it turns out I was first going to be kind of shit on this because so many times, because I have friends that are voice actors, they go to names to voice things, and that Chris Pratt thing, as drives me crazy because he's just himself all the time. But a lot of these folks, obviously they're on-screen actors, but they've voiced many things at this point. But Chris Hemsworth, it turns out it's his first job animating or voicing an animated character, and he only joined it after he was impressed with the screenplay. So, hopefully that means something.
Okay.
And unlike the other Chris, whose name I invoked just a moment ago, he is, according to this, he's made an effort not to use his own speaking voice for Optimus Prime. So,
the Hemsworth has. Okay.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Yes.
Right.
So he's
right.
not. He's
Put in a little effort.
Yes. Come on. In contrast, though, Key, it turns out, at the request of the director, stayed closer to his regular speaking voice for Bumblebee. I can see that. I really like Key, Keegan-Michael Key. Anyway, and I see in the comments, Darth Baca says that it was going to be a standalone movie. But Darth, check this out, because according to the producer last June, Lorenzo Di Bonaventuris, he said that the story will progress over 3 movies and will depict the characters' evolution into their live-action counterparts. This is where I was saying I got confused.
What?
So it's going to be an animated thing, and this is the guy who's been producing the Transformers movies.
Yeah.
So the animated prequel that we're going to see, we're going to see them over the course of 3 movies become ultimately the Optimus Prime that's voiced by Peter Cullen in the first Michael Bay film. So in theory, we could watch those 3 animated ones and then start watching the live-action Terminators.
The live-action Terminators?
No. The live-action
Transformers. I would much prefer watching the Terminators, quite frankly.
I know that about you. And if you're worried that Hemsworth sounds nothing like Peter Cullen, who's got that such a perfect, wonderful, sultry voice. Unfortunately, he's cursed in a sense because I hear him. He does a voice on the Invincible cartoon. It's Peter Cullen. I mean, it's Optimus Prime. Yeah. But the producer went on to explain that Hemsworth's depiction will grow into the leader depicted in the previous installments, stating that the transition will show Hemsworth's voice transform to Peter Cullen's in a way that will make sense within the story. You'll be like, I'm a young Optimus Prime, and I want to be a leader, and I've been studying hard to become... I mean, that's the flash forward. Anyway, it's scheduled to come out this year in September. There you go. Right.
All right.
Oh, Lynn says, journalistic shitheads band name, called it. All right, you could have that. You could have it.
It's not bad.
And I think Nick's pointing out the problem with the Transformers films. The humor just became more and more juvenile. Yeah. It was like sight gags. I stopped watching them at some point.
So Miss So is asking, random question, what's on your hat? Mini tornadoes? Croissants? Can't tell.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
I can't either.
Yeah.
Let's get a close-up.
Yeah, zoom me in. We'll make it happen.
Yeah,
Even you know what they probably are.
Ah, yeah, now we can. It's a CX-40.
There you go. It's a whole bunch of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go. Not croissants or tornadoes. Croissant Tornado, another great band name.
Called it. Oh, see, Darth says Orion Pax gets damaged and Alpha Trion rebuilds him and gives him the new name Optimus Prime. See there, thank you. I knew you would know.
See there? We knew someone would know. Yeah.
And also, as Darth mentioned, yes, per Deadline and other Transformers news, the Transformers G.I. Joe crossover movie has been greenlit. So after being teased, and look, we didn't. Neither you or I, neither you nor I, have watched the last film, Transformers: Rise of the Beast.
That's right.
But
That's right.
Apparently, this was teased in a post-credit scene that shows, they introduced that the world of G.I. Joe exists and that they want to play a role and they're there to help, that sort of thing.
So they showed like a robot guy interacting with the G.I. Joe guy, and now we know they're together in the same universe?
Sort of. Not exactly. Okay. So the actor who was sort of the lead in the whole film, and again, I didn't see it, but I know this actor, Anthony Ramos, who's in Hamilton. I've only seen him in Hamilton. He's in a meeting with another character. I think it's Michael Kelly who plays him, and he says, hey, if you're looking for, we'd love to have you a part of our organization. Gives him a business card, and then he opens a secret door and goes inside this room and a little thing, and then the kid looks out. And he's like, this computers and different stuff I should probably recognize from G.I. Joe. And then finally, Anthony looks at the card and it says G.I. Joe on it, and then
Oh, not Avengers Initiative. It's G.I. Joe. Got it.
No, yeah,
that's the same kind of setup almost.
Thing,
yeah, we're forming an organization.
Yeah. The idea to mix these two worlds together actually began in the 1980s in the Marvel published comics that saw these two worlds merge. Just like the other films that we talked about, Steven Spielberg's also going to be the executive producer, and normally that gives me great hope for films, but because of my great disappointment with most of the Transformers movies, I don't know. I don't know if that matters.
How do their abilities complement each other? I mean, do the G.I. Joes just drive the Transformers?
Like, I don't need you in there, dude.
No, really. It's like, I can move around on my own, and I'm a giant robot with weaponry, and you're a little meat sack that has a little pistol. Pop, pop, pop. I mean, how are you helping, really? Other than get a lube job or something,
Whoa.
It's not a euphemism. You literally need a lube job.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like an odd, I don't know. It's an odd complementary pairing of franchises to me. Remains to be seen.
Optimus is feeling tense. You know what to do.
I've got the grease gun, Optimus. Bend over.
Honestly, I was racking my brain to think of some kind of clever allusion to something, but I know so little about cars that I couldn't. And then you just say bend over. Okay.
Right in the catalytic converter.
There you go. All right. So, you got me thinking, though, talking about how meat sacks.
Subtlety is not one of my fortes.
You probably tamp it down when Cat's around. So it forces you to be a little more, like music in the 1980s, radio music. You got to be clever about these things. But you got me thinking, you're talking about meat sacks inside these things. If we're talking about the origins of Transformers in a prequel, it would be great to see the first time a human climbed inside of one, right? And oh, shit.
Shredded.
I got to be more careful. Somehow I got to transform around these people. Something. I'd like to see that.
I tried to think about that.
Yeah.
But it'd be messy.
Anyway, I was curious that they're even going so far with the Transformers because, again, I felt like it was a great brand with potential that they kind of screwed up. But it turns out that Rise of the Beast made $430 million last year, which was enough for it to best the other big franchise film of last summer, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go.
Damn it, Kathleen Kennedy.
Yeah, that's right.
So somehow her fault.
Yes, that's why we're getting this. All right, hey, that was 1980s news.
I helped.
Just because we're here on our own doing the comments too. Just scanning. Scanning. There's a lot of stuff, but whatever. We're ready.
Marcus said G.I. Joe has lots of upgrade gadgets that perhaps they could actually contribute.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Huh.
All right.
I mean, these are
I'll give you credit for
high-tech
that.
sentient robots from another planet. What could they
What do you got?
possibly benefit from mankind?
Yeah, we have a silencer on our gun now. It's super awesome. Yeah.
All right.
We have
Hey,
a giant
so
robot.
as we mentioned, look, this is a constant trend, but there's folks needing content and younger folks needing content or calling out prior generations on, various platforms, including TikTok.
Because they're bored.
And
be
you know
jealous.
what? The thing that probably just, whatever, young people, right? Am I right? We're starting to get confabulated.
What's the deal with young people?
Yeah. They're starting to, we're starting to get blended with boomers. It's like Gen X and boomers are becoming one for Gen Zers and millennials and whatever is younger than them. I always forget what they're
They'd like to. They'd like to lump us together.
Yeah. Well, whatever. Anyway, but like I mentioned, on these streamers, when someone says Gen X anything, someone like Slim Sherry or some of these other folks jump in right in there and stitch it and set them straight. But anyway, so some of them that just kind of, caught my attention, we'll say it that way. I wanted to bring to your attention and just see if we could settle sort of how we feel about these things, and maybe set some of these younger folks straight. And if anybody has comments as well out there, we can do that.
The irony is,
I see what Lynn wrote.
the irony is, whatever we may say, they don't really want it explained to them. They just want to rail against the machine and yell at us to have content. They're not going to go, oh, we heard from 1980s now, and now it's all very clear. They don't really want a resolution. No. They just want a beef.
You're right.
That's okay.
That's true. Yeah.
We'll do our best.
Yeah. With regard to G.I. Joe, Lynn says G.I. Joes can do a PSA at the end. Yeah, that would be great. Mm-hmm. That's all they do? The film ends and knowing is half the battle.
G.I. Joe.
If a robot asks you to give him a hand job, be careful. You need to know your catalytic converter from your, what's other parts? Shock absorber, exhaust
carburetor,
piston,
valve cover, transmission. Pick one.
You can't just stick anything you want into a Transformer's exhaust. The more you
Before you change gears, make sure he's not an automatic.
Okay. All right.
That probably means something to somebody, but I'm not sure. Not me.
Order is to send. All right. Okay. Hey. All right. So I don't know. What's the order? Is an interesting order to do these, and I don't even remember what they are. Tell you what. Let's just. Shoot.
The mustachioed fellow. Go with him.
The mustachioed fellow? Okay.
Yeah. He's got a little porn stash. That's a great way to get started, I think.
Yeah. All right. So, hey, we'll play a video and we'll hear what these folks have to say. And if it's long, I'll cut it down on the actual podcast.
It's a TikTok. How long could it be?
Living life, not caring what people think about you. Like, truly tell me how you do it. How are you not bothered when people don't like you for no reason or are mean to you for no reason? Because the advice that I always get is like, well, just don't let it bother you. Which to me sounds like, if somebody punches you in the face, just like, don't feel it. I can't turn off the way I feel. I can't turn off my emotions. Like, are y'all telling the truth? Do you really not care? Or is there something wrong with me?
So is that a characterization of Gen X that I guess that we say that maybe, I suppose.
That we say just get over it?
Maybe.
My experience, look, I got to be careful with my kids because I do feel, from my own experience, and I guess it's only now with the benefit of the internet and all these things that we're able to, and Facebook, et cetera, that we're able to realize that more than just us, that other people share our experiences and some things in great numbers. And I think Gen X, for the most part, it is a characterization that is one of those things based at least in part in truth. And I could speak only, I guess, from personal experience and maybe my circle of friends that we do tend to be more thick-skinned than other folks I know. And as a result, I do have to be careful when I'm trying to teach my kids to just who cares? To not say it that way because it seems so dismissive of how they are feeling.
It does. Well, and anything I say for the remainder of this episode and truly throughout my life, when I mention Gen X or anybody, to categorize people by their cohort is not fair because there's a blending. There's, late boomers and early Gen Xers. There's a lot of overlap in there. And truly a lot of experiences that you have doesn't mean only you had them. When people talk about the Gen X experience, it doesn't mean we own it or we only have it. It just means we all had it and maybe other people did too. So an experience that I associate with Gen X that probably could attribute to that perception is we were often told as kids, first, we were free-range kids that were running around on our own all day. And if we got hurt, we got in trouble sometimes. Or if we got hurt and they would look and go, yeah, just walk it off, rub some sand on it.
Yeah.
There was less knee-jerk reaction that you're actually hurt. Doesn't mean we're neglected. It just meant that we weren't coddled, probably, because our parents were busy. We started the two-family working family households, and we were by ourselves a lot. And so I don't think anybody means don't feel it. He said it's like get punched in the face and don't feel it. It's really about don't internalize it emotionally right away. I have found, give it a day, and you'll probably feel much better about it before you feel horrible right now. Just it'll be better tomorrow. Relax and wait and see how it goes.
Yeah. Look, to your point, the disclaimer of this whole thing is obviously we have our unique experiences, and some of them may be in common, and some of them are in common in greater numbers, and maybe that's where these stereotypes come from. Mine is, I recall greatly, so many people and adults in my life, parents, saying like, it was the older generation that raised us was the, you think that's bad, kind of thing, because they had it worse.
Right. The uphill in the snow both ways to get to school kind of thing. That was the prototypical boomer story they would tell Gen Xers. Whatever we complained about, you ain't got it rough. And we probably didn't in reality. We didn't have it rough.
And they were raised by folks that came out of the Depression. So, so it kind of makes sense. But I remember being told specifically to suppress my feelings. Like, no, or it's, I'll give you something to cry about. Think about it. I mean, that
was a thing.
That's a thing of, that from, again, the parents that, the generation that raised us, this is what they told us. So, yeah, I do feel like, to sort of a large extent, we were told to suppress our feelings. But the other thing I came across, and sort of thinking about it, looking at other folks who responded to these things and doing some reading is, I mean, and this is another aspect I think of, certainly my circle that is, maybe I have to be careful of how I carry it over into my life with my family is, if we had fun making fun of each other, there was some joy in putting each other down, and you couldn't take it seriously. Otherwise, you'd be upset all the time. And it really wasn't personal, even though your best friends would probably call out the thing that they knew bothered you the most.
Right. Yeah. Whatever it was that you most didn't like. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you let them know, that's it. You are done. That's your nickname now.
Right.
And so you did have to start guarding how you feel, and maybe not responding how anybody raised in any other environment, our kids, who are coddled in these little bubbles, could. So I think the characterization is true. Can you teach that an ability to somebody to do it?
Not really. And I think too, what that poster was alluding to, it's probably our perception, meaning Gen Xers, people of our generation or our general cohort. Certainly my perception, and I won't speak for anyone else, is that younger generations tend to get upset a little bit easier, or maybe show it easier a little bit. And it's probably because they've been empowered to not internalize their emotions. So they put them out there right away. And you know who taught them that? They're Gen X parents. It's not like we can blame anyone except ourselves. We became the helicopter play date parents that we didn't have. I think we overcompensated for the lack of oversight that we had as kids. We swung the pendulum way too far. And now we're saying, and now we want to hold them accountable to what our standards are, even though we raised them to be a little more open and sensitive and sharing with their feelings that we made a bottled up. So it's a fair comment.
Yeah. And I guess, and I mean, your point almost points out like, that maybe we're responsible for creating these ingrateful children, these ingrates. But I mean, we don't even have to get to that, but you're right. It's sort of our how we raised our kids, a reaction to how we were raised, of course. Yes. Mm-hmm. Nick says, there's older Gen Xers who act like they're emotionally bulletproof, but they can be triggered about other topics. Yeah, that's true. Everybody's
fair. Yeah.
I tend to think I don't have any, but and Marcus says, what the fuck do you do when something actually goes wrong if you spend your time worried about every single one of your feelings? You know what? I agree. I tend to be like that, Marcus. And that's how I approach my kids and even my wife when they come to me for advice about things. It's like, don't waste your energy on this. Save it for the real thing, man. This seems big. Trust me, this is nothing. Something really bad
you didn't get the part in that play? Well, wait a minute, because think about what's going to happen later when your car explodes on the side of the road. That's a big deal you got to deal with. Right. Not like, oh, it's an inconvenience. But again, I think we tend to shelter our kids because we weren't sheltered. And so those things seem bigger to them likely than they might have been to us. So when we see it, you go like, why are you upset? Just, tough it up. Walk it off. And yeah.
Miss So says, we also set things on fire and blew things up as kids in the 80s. We were afraid of nothing.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, I guess that's part of it. No, I as I want to do sometimes, I just did some digging around to see if anybody's actually dug into this idea that, like, why are Gen Xers seem more thick-skinned maybe than other generations. In an August of 2023 New York Times article called "Hate Gen X, Get in Line Behind a Gen Xer," end quote.
So we're self-hating? Is that what they said?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Sarah Miller is the author, and she tries to understand why the insults of younger generations don't hurt our feelings. And she ponders whether it's that we're practiced at hating ourselves is one thing. She talks to someone who says, I don't think it's necessarily that, but maybe it's just that we are self-deprecating, and our generation is more that. And I do remember a big part of our humor being self-deprecating, but that was a way of disarming people. You can't make fun of the fact that I'm short, because I call myself Shorty, or whatever, something like that. And so it was another coping mechanism to avoid having to have a situation where we even had to have feelings. I'm just going to, cut that right out.
Yeah. Plus, we're the whatever generation. It's rather than argue and fight and deflect, our method of ending it was like, whatever. That attitude, though we saw it in pop culture, even say whatever, the attitude that I saw as I was a kid and a young adult was, it's not that you didn't get upset by it, but you're not going to waste time on it. So you go, whatever. And it is dismissive, but it also is protective because now I don't have to invest more time and energy in this thing that bothers me. It's our version of it is what it is, I think, like, whatever. That's what you're going to be like, be that way. And I'm not going to deal with it. I'm not going to talk to you about it, whatever.
I think, like we've talked about before, it's a little more nihilistic though too, because how we kind of expected that we might not survive into our adulthood. So it's like, why am I going to bother with this? I don't have time for this. I gotta live my life here. I'm going to be dead in 5 years when the bombs go off. And ultimately, Miller talks with Patrick Blanchfield and Abby Klutchen, I'm going to say, who are the hosts of Ordinary Unhappiness, which is a podcast about psychoanalysis. And they suggest that generations have superegos. And they explain that the superego is the message a person gets from authority figures that they take to be coming from inside their own minds. And they suggest, quote, you could say that the superego of the boomer generation is I can do no wrong, and the superego for Gen X is I can do no right. And that's also speaking to the idea that if, we already know our limitations. You're not going to point them out.
No surprises.
Let's see. Who else should we look at here?
Your pick. I picked the last guy.
Yeah. I'm trying to see. I wanted to save this one for last. So I'm trying to.
Okay.
I don't remember what this woman speaks about.
Normally don't do like generational tiffs or whatever those videos because I think they're stupid and petty. But we need to have a serious discussion about Gen X and older and the casual use of the ellipsis.
Oh.
Now let's remember that the ellipsis is used to either demonstrate words that aren't there or hesitation. But I'll be in work all the time or on Facebook with, talking to older relatives, and all of a sudden they'll say, have a great day, ... Let's meet on Tuesday, ... What is going on? Like, do you just not know what this is grammatically, or do you hate me? Is this like one giant generational passive-aggressive power move that I'm unaware of? I can't. I'm so confused.
I will start. I agree with her.
Okay.
The overuse of ... is a passive-aggressive. It's as if You end it with, it's one thing to go, hey, would you do me this favor? It's something else to go, would you do me this favor? That you probably owe me and I'm waiting for a positive response.
I see.
It's this trailing off of the, like, I didn't have a complete thought because I'm not saying the part that I'm thinking.
Okay.
It's the difference between, have a nice day or have a nice day, ... you dirty bastard who doesn't deserve it. It's that kind of, it implies something after it that you're leaving out that can be perceived. That bothers me too. Is that generational? I guess she experienced it that way.
Yeah, that would be my question. I don't. I think Kat uses them a lot actually too. So it'd be great if Kat were here, but she's not. Lynn writes, "Ugh." ... And Nick says, "Child, your generation doesn't even like punctuation." Yeah, that's true. Who are they to cast any stones in this regard? They speak in emojis, etc. No, I don't. I guess I know some folks of our generation that do it. I don't know that it's a generational thing, and I don't. I really don't care. I just don't.
No, you don't.
It's so
I do.
silly.
I do care.
Yeah.
Yeah. If someone says, "I'll be right there," or if they go, "I'll be right there," ... because you're inconvenienced me somehow, and it just feels like you've left off something that you're not saying because it would be mean, which is as good as just say the mean thing. Don't be so pussy about it. Come on, just do it.
Well, yeah. If that's what it means, then yeah, I get that. Just be direct. But I would think if it's a generational thing and we're limiting to Gen X, they would just say the thing.
Right?
I mean,
Yeah.
I think
so
that's another
maybe
thing about
maybe
our
it is
generation.
older
We're
people. I don't
direct.
know. Yeah. I don't see that as generational behavior, but I see it as one that I find distasteful.
Yeah, you don't like it. Yeah, I get it. All right, let's see here. What do we got here? Let's try another one.
I think it's really kind of weird that we never got a Generation X president. Like, we had Clinton, who was a boomer, and then we got Bush Jr., who was another boomer, and then we got Obama, who was a boomer, and then we got Trump, which is silent generation, so we went back a generation, and then we got Biden, which is also silent generation. Like, we're going to have, and the people who are going to be the nominees for 2024 are Trump and Biden, who are both silent generation. So we're going to have people who were alive in the 1940s as the president in 2024. And this makes my brain hurt. But what happened to Generation X? There's really not even that many of them in Congress or the Senate. Like, there's way more boomers and now millennials than there are Generation X in Congress or the Senate.
Yeah.
Fair point.
I have thoughts about this, because
What do you think?
Beginning a couple of years ago, it does seem like I want to say in politics in particular, because there's other things. I think in other industries, our generations have been very active and has been able to. I want to say allowed to participate, but in some instances, older generations couldn't. They had to step back. So you were saying earlier, college kids are the ones that make the video games. There's certain types of industries, businesses that rely on the innovation of younger folks, like the very streaming platform that we're watching, taking these videos from TikTok. Right. But politics is a whole different animal. And there's probably I can't think of another industry. I mean, think about entertainment industry. Folks from Generation X are leading in there. That's why we got a lot of 80s, content. Politics, it just drives me crazy. But he's right. And I think the reason why is the boomers refuse to retire. They do not want to step down.
Wow, I hadn't considered that at all.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna take a couple of things here. So yeah, in fact, look, and trying to back this up again, because so that's my opinion, and it turns out it's technically true for a couple of reasons, including the fact that Congressman Eric Swalwell, for example, spoke with voters in Iowa and New Hampshire, South Carolina. He's a Gen Xer, and he was thinking, hey, maybe people want to hear from a new voice. And no, he turns out what he learned is that voters are risk averse to younger candidates. And I can kind of understand you might have especially if you're an older person, you have a greater, comfort level with someone either of your generation or there's this automatic, closer to your generation, or you have this automatic feeling about someone, a paternalistic thing. If someone seems like a father figure to me or a mother figure to me, I tend to trust them more than someone who seems like the kid who should be mowing my lawn. kind of
okay.
thing.
I feel like we do hold the responsibility of a kind of a disconnect between the message we gave when we were younger and how we followed through on that. But either way, we can't win, because on one hand, we were fight the establishment, rage against the machine. We brought that in from boomers because they were anti-war and protest. And so we had our version of that was hands off, like you guys are doing what you're doing, and we don't want to be a part of it. So that tracks. We didn't want to be a part of it. We still don't want to be a part of it. However, we also, on the other hand, not me or you personally probably, but a great many people would say, well, when I'm old enough, I'm not going to make these same mistakes. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to be able to do whatever. But we don't. We err toward the side of the whatever. It's like, I don't want to get involved, standoffish, laissez-faire, do what you want to do kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's almost like we don't want to impose ourselves, or maybe we don't feel worthy of being in that role because we railed against it for so long. We don't want to become that.
Yeah.
So even if becoming that means you can make a difference that's positive, if it's something you just don't want to be, you find distasteful, I can see Gen Xers not wanting to become a part of politics because their entire life they thought politicians were bullshit artists, and they don't want to become a bullshit artist,
I agree with you in that regard. Yeah, we were raised in the 1980s during an era where, Reagan was telling us, the president of the United States was telling us, don't trust government. And look, he had a reason to in a sense, except he's the president. So you think if anybody's in a position to get it fucking straightened out, he should. But instead he's like, don't trust anybody, including me. He's like the guy in Last Crusade telling Indiana Jones, don't trust anyone. Turns out to be a bad guy. Anyway, so yeah, and we talked about this before, so all of our media followed suit. We have all these TV shows, movies, etc., that had these characters that were anti-government, but they were quasi-government. They were doing things, mostly enforcing some kind of law or law and order that the government normally would. But yeah, okay, coming out of Vietnam, coming out of Nixon, all that stuff, I get all that. So you're right. Yep. I do think we were disillusioned, and partly, like we talked about just a moment ago, our parents and older folks are telling us that we're worthless and dumb and, yelling at us when we don't hold the flashlight at the right angle when they're trying to change fix the sink from underneath or whatever. Yeah, so I think that's a good combination not to be motivated, but there's a good number of folks who are anyway in spite of that because somehow they grew up in they had a normal childhood with loving parents, and there's just no place for them anyway. And I got some info with regard to this.
Okay.
A Pew Research study from 2023 shows that the House of Representatives is getting younger a little bit, and the Senate is getting older. How much older could it fucking get? The median age of the voting House is 57.9, down from 58.9, so about a year. The current Senate's median age, on the other hand, is 65.3, up from 64.8. Yeah. And when you consider, and this is going to sound like a smart thing, but I read this. When you consider that the median age in America is 39, or around 39, according to the Census Bureau, our country is being run by a gerontocracy, it turns out. Which means
like
the old folks are in
I don't like that they're doing it. I like the phrase.
Yeah. And take a look at this. If you want to see it by generation, because I was talking about it by age. On the right here is a chart that shows how the current House is based on generation. The yellow is Gen X. Yep. Everything else is somebody else. But the green and the dark green are the older generations. And they outnumber us easily.
By a bunch.
Yeah. And so I agree with everything that we've said so far. And in fact, folks in the chat, including myself, agree with this. We're disillusioned. So why would we want to join that?
That's it.
But again, I contend that there's no place to go. And these old folks, once they get in, they're hard to get out because now you're running against an incumbent. And I found this. According to a 2023 piece by former speechwriter for George H.W. Bush, Mary Kay Cate, she said most baby boomers who delay retirement do so because they can't afford working, right? But she's talking about us, about regular folks. She points out these politicians who won't leave, they're millionaires. And when they retire, they get amazing government pensions and health care. Not even Medicare or Medicaid. They get the best health care.
Like proper paid for health care. Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
So
the health care we would like to have.
Right. We all, residents would like that. So she explains, she provides some other theories. One is that it's denial, that they associate stopping work with the end of their life, and they don't want to be reminded of their own mortality. Another one they say is identity driven, and the fact that they so closely align themselves with their work that what would it mean to stop doing my work? Who am I after that?
Well, if you do it for 60 years, I can see why perhaps you become identified with it. Yeah.
Another theory is ego. She says these folks are not exactly humble, so they think that they're indispensable. Who else is going to do it if not me? And then finally, she suggests, of course, that in the political world, their interest is often about power as well. And who would want to give up the power that these folks have? Get the fuck out. You're old.
I guess there's some power in there, but I would say by and large, you're ineffectual. And you see, I don't want to cast aspersions based on age, but certainly just like there are millennials and Gen Y and people that understand things in a way. When I say understand things, I should be more specific. They understand the general attitude of the current situation as far as pop culture and as far as the attitudes that people have that old people just don't adopt, myself included. I don't adopt the mentality or the thoughtfulness that people today have because they were raised in an entirely different way.
Yeah.
But when the country is younger, why should you have people that have never adapted making the laws?
Yeah.
And we see the butting of heads against lawmakers who are set in their ways from the 40s, who want to impose 40s like norms upon people that were not at all raised that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's frustrating.
Yeah.
Enough to make me want to run for office.
Do it, John.
Not that frustrated. Not that frustrated.
Next time, yeah.
Yeah.
Marcus says, and this is actually echoes a sentiment that I've seen, Gen Xers, content creators on these platforms respond to this video. Marcus writes, we aren't metered enough in our communication to run for office. Yeah. Some folks are suggesting you don't want a Gen Xer in charge. Can you imagine? Because like we talked about before, they don't give a shit what you think about them.
Yeah.
If they want to get something done in a certain way, they're just going to do it. They're going to directly tell you. And, so yeah. But that said, obviously the folks that would run for office, I imagine, and have the charisma to get it, would have the skills to do it.
Yeah. Would have some more of that internal governors on their activity probably.
Yeah. Like we do when Kat's around. She's our external governor. Miss So says local governments seem to run younger, more Gen X in local offices. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, 100% true. All right, hey, let's take a look at another video here.
A lot of shit, and rightfully so. And so do millennials. Everyone thinks we're fucking lazy and we can't buy houses. And Gen Z gets some shit too. Tiny attention span, spends all their time on TikTok. Who let Gen X off the hook? Why aren't we talking shit about those guys? They were teenagers in the 80s and were in their 20s in the 90s. Those are the sickest decades. They had the coolest music and the best movies. Where are those motherfuckers now? Why aren't they getting heat for not saving the planet and not making good on all their promises? They were supposed to usher in some technology-driven...
Wait a second. Not making good on our promises? To the point of everything we've talked about so far, we didn't promise anybody anything.
That's it. We kept our heads down. We kept to ourselves. We're just like, they're going to do the world and we're going to sit here and watch them do it. Yeah, we never did.
Utopia. A bunch of those fuckers started...
This guy's not on the screen anymore. What happened?
I don't know.
Huh. Oh, I got to press a button here. Hang on 1 second.
Okay.
How do I... Oh, there we go. Oh, we don't want to be
He's somewhere.
I want to match what we had, though. Oh, whatever. This will look great in post.
We're in some technology-driven utopia. A bunch of those fuckers started these mega tech companies. They were the first people to have the internet, and I think they blew it. So let's not forget to talk shit about Gen X as well.
I don't know what the fuck this dude's talking about.
Yeah. First of all, people do talk shit, not nearly as much as people on both sides of us. They straddle us when they're mad. It's because you want to yell at the extremes. The very old are going to yell at the very young. But the people in the middle, again, we're just sipping tea, we're eating popcorn, watching them rage at each other. We don't need to be involved. And it's almost the same as the question from before, the same response, which is that wasn't us. We didn't get involved in stuff. We don't pop our head up. We keep to ourselves because we were taught to keep to ourselves when we were kids. Yeah.
Yeah. And like we just talked about, even if we wanted to save the planet, as this guy suggests, there was no space for us politically to get involved. I mean,
Yeah.
and look, and that's not to say that Gen Xers didn't do stuff in the form of political activism, because certainly they did.
Right.
But
he's generalizing. There are more on the other sides of us than there are in Gen X, which I understand, but there's a reason for that, which we just said.
Yeah. Lynn says they hate us because they ain't us.
Yeah.
It says I do feel bad for younger folks who can't afford homes and are buried in student debt. I've been looking for affordable housing for me and my brother for 3 years now. No luck. Yeah, I agree. But you know what? I would suggest, and I don't know if this is true, but the people in charge of those programs are probably these old fucks still. You know?
Yep.
And look, another thing that happens when you get older is that you start thinking, about your mortality like they talk about, and you start worrying about like, well, what does this mean for me and my life? And I'm going to die. Instead of thinking like, all right, I'm going to die, let me leave something for the other kids. No, I'm going to take it all with me when I die. Because somehow then I'm not so scared about death. And so you have this illusion like you got to being 80 years old all on your own and nobody helped you and blah, blah, blah. No.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Certainly I can relate to that and what the listener is talking about, which is it's tough. My daughter is in her early 20s, and it is way more difficult to go out on your own now than it was when I was the same age, without a doubt. We all got there. It's not like it was anybody's one person's fault or one generation's fault, but it's an ebb and flow, and they're currently in the dip of this ebb and flow. They just got the short end of the stick, and I expect it's going to swing the other way eventually. But whereas I think boomers had probably the best benefit of housing and healthcare and things like that. Look at Archie Bunker. Whatever he did, he was made almost no money. He was the only worker in his house. He took care of everybody, including his deadbeat son-in-law, because he could afford it. And now you can't afford to take care of yourself half the time. And I get that frustration, but it doesn't mean that we're responsible for it. And there's just no reason to give a shit, because we didn't do it any more or less than anybody else did.
Yeah, and certainly affects us too. All right, let's take a look at the last video here, which I think is the most ridiculous of them all.
I'm going to need to be the one to explain to all of the 40-year-old people and above, so 40 plus. Yo, you guys keep sending out these thumbs up emojis, and they look more like this to the Gen X, Z, and Millennials. Yo, we depict the thumbs up as a fuck you. It's rude. You're rude.
All right. First of all, she said that Gen X takes his and Gen Z. So we're lumped in with the folks that are offended by older folks, older than us, giving the thumbs up, which I think we can say is patently false, right?
Did she say 40 and older, which would be including young millennials? I thought she was saying that. Anyway, whoever she's talking about. Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. She says 40 and older, but then she says Gen Xers are also pissed off about
it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she did.
So it doesn't really make any sense.
That's irrelevant.
Yeah. Well, some folks' response to this, again, on TikTok, it goes back to the very first thing we talked about. We don't care. It doesn't hurt our feelings that you are saying this, and that you have to be the ones to point it out to us. We don't care what you think about us. But also, we don't care generally if the thing, look, we're softer, like in that sense, John says, a lot of us are, with regard to younger kids than our parents were to us. But if we think the thing that bothers you is dumb, I mean, it's hard for us to care.
We're going to say, that's what the kids are saying these days, right? This is spilling the tea. Is that what we're doing? If it sounds dumb coming out of our face, we'll say it because we know it makes you uncomfortable. Yeah. But aside from that, I've heard the thumbs up thing before. This is not the first time I've heard this. The thumbs up emoji is somehow now perceived as it's being like, okay, whatever, fine. First of all, whatever, that's our thing. It's a dismissive thing. But it makes me so upset. Words mean things. But you didn't want to talk with words. You wanted to talk with little pictures. So we gave you 8,000 little pictures to use. And then we started using them because you wanted to talk with little pictures. And now you want to change what the fucking little pictures mean. No, a thumbs up means thumbs up. It means all right, okay. It doesn't. And by the way, there is a flip off bird emoji if you'd like to use it, and we could use it if we wanted to. We know where it's at. If that's what we meant, that's what we would put under your comment, not a thumbs up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Better now. You make me think, like, who are raising these kids? Like, who raised that woman? Like, I imagine a Gen Xer did based on her age.
I'd expect, yeah.
So didn't she, look, for all we're saying that we coddle our children in a way more than our parents coddled us, but my kid knows I'm direct. My kid knows if I want to say something, I just say it. You know, I don't generally, you know, passive aggressively give them a thumbs up when I mean fuck yourself.
Right.
So I don't know how these younger people are getting these. How do they not know these certain things about their parents? You know,
well, the problem is they're not talking about their parents. They're formulating their own. What does this mean? Yeah. And then they want to map that intent on anyone that uses their new meaning. The thumbs up meant what it meant. It still means that, right? When you're at the airport and the guy is out there and he gives you the thumbs up, he's not saying fuck the pilot. He's saying you are good, right? Thumbs up still means something. And it means the same thing in emoji as it does in reality. Just because in your little group, you said, hey, let's all, the thumbs up, let's say it means this, or we all agree it means this, doesn't mean we're all going to start using it that way. Because we have defined what it means already. And your redefinition of it does not affect me, whatever.
Yeah. Jason says, I never thought the Fonz was flipping people off.
That's right. Hey, fuck all you guys.
Yeah. Now, it turns out, and I don't think this is the origin of this, but it turns out that not all of the symbols that we use in our country, the United States, hand gestures mean the same thing everywhere else. And so I thought some of these were interesting that I'll just share with you.
Okay.
One is
I think the thumbs up's pretty universal, though. But okay, yes, go ahead.
I'll save that one for last.
All right.
The okay sign. It turns out, you know, look, in most places, making a circle with your thumb and index finger means okay. But you make that same gesture in Brazil, and you're giving the equivalent of the middle finger.
Asshole.
Because it has insulting, quote, scatological connotations, according to the New York Times.
That's right.
In fact, Richard Nixon once raised eyebrows in the 1950s when he made that gesture as he stepped off a plane in Brazil.
Right. They're saying you are an asshole is effectively what that means to that culture.
It's funny. I never thought about that.
I've known people from Brazil, right?
And because we can't have nice things in this country, this is also some version of this now has come to stand for, you know, white supremacy. White supremacy
really?
Are using it, yeah.
Seriously? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Goodness.
I think it's upside down maybe, and they're hiding it. They're doing it in pictures and stuff.
Ooh. Like how an upside down pineapple means something different?
I just learned that on some TikTok video, I think it was.
I was waiting to hear how you learned it.
Yeah, I came home one day.
I'm here for the party.
I was like, honey, why are we decorating with pineapples? And I fixed the one that was up. No, put it back. Devil horns. So look, mostly heavy metal folks, you know, make the sign of the sign of the horns, devil horns. Yeah.
Sure.
But in many European and South American countries, including Italy, Spain, Greece, Brazil, Argentina, and Colombia, the gesture has a more obscene meaning. There, it's used to mean cuckolds, husbands whose wives are unfaithful, because the word for cuckold in Italian, Spanish, and Greek is the same word for horned. So you may actually make this gesture to tell someone their wife is cheating on them.
Oh. So if it's based on linguistics, for us, it could also mean horny if we wanted it to.
Yeah, right? I was thinking that's kind of, it's probably
good.
It probably is.
How you doing?
Now
you know.
You probably know this one, the peace sign. The V, obviously we make the peace sign by making a V with our index and middle fingers.
Before you say, is it directional? Is that true?
How do you mean directional?
No, go ahead. Go. Like, is it forward or backward?
Yes.
Two different things.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's
and in fact,
exactly
if you turn it, it means something even worse, I think.
Oh.
Someone is offended right now watching this. They're like, I cannot believe.
I don't know what this means, but someone's going to figure it out.
He's putting up the horns and he's doing this and he's assholing me. It's everything.
Giving you the thumbs up, John.
That's a little vivid.
But originally it meant victory during World War II among the Allied nations. And then eventually anti-war activists adopted it, you know, sort of reappropriated as a symbol for peace. Well, yeah, as you mentioned, in certain Commonwealth countries, including the UK, Ireland, Australia, When you turn it around, it's an obscene gesture, meaning the middle finger. But it actually does also require this little flicking up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this looks like a curious rabbit to me. Hey, did you see where my buddy?
Just looking around. Hippity hop.
Fingers crossed. In most countries, crossing your fingers means good luck, but not in Vietnam.
Really?
There, the gesture is thought to resemble female genitals and is similar to making the middle finger. Everything comes down to the middle finger.
I didn't know that one. That was a new one on me.
I see this, and it makes
Stop!
me...
You're offending me, Will. You're putting up all these obscene symbols.
I was showing you. Oh,
you know what I think of those? Thumbs up.
okay. Now I could make a whole anatomy.
You could.
Cat,
We miss you, Cat.
Cat,
You
you
need
be
to
here.
regulate this shit.
Yes. And finally, the thumbs up. It's a sign of approval in most countries. However, several countries in West Africa and the Middle East, including Iran, Iraq, and Afghanistan, the gesture has the same connotation as up yours. It's the same as the middle finger in the U.S. Now, I don't think that young lady was Middle Eastern, or was probably being thinking of other cultures.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway,
Well, she
there
called
you
us
go.
bro, so
Yeah.
listen, bro. You gotta pay attention, bro.
All right, and there you go. That's all that nonsense. Brandon says in the writing, so Shakespeare, biting your thumb at someone was a fuck you. That's right. Do you bite your thumb at me, sir? I do bite my thumb, sir, but I do not bite it at you, sir. Yes, Brandon, I know what you're doing there. Marcus So's A-hole anatomy. Well, I don't know what that is.
Those are all your hand gestures.
Oh, Jason says bullocks. Yeah, I'm sure that goes along with that there.
Yeah.
Nick, it says on the military, the upside down okay is the punch game. Google it. Yeah. Oh, is that in the military? We did that in high school too, Nick. Yeah. We called it snap or something like that. Yeah.
Yep.
If you could, and it had to be below the waist though. If you get someone to look at your okay sign,
Get 'em to
upside
look.
down below your waist,
Yep.
you could punch them. Yeah.
Yeah. Made you look.
Yeah. Made you look right. Yeah. That's pretty funny, right? That got around. That's another one of those things we said, like without
Another
anybody
one like the red
talking
box.
about it.
Everybody just knew it.
Yeah. All right. Hey, that was the show without Kat.
Oh.
And because she's not here, I'm going to tell you guys, because even without Kat being here, we're still grateful. We're grateful for all the folks that help make our show every week, including our early adopters, Rick Parker and Karen Flieger.
Thank you. Awesome
Thank you,
people.
guys. And our secret of my success, or she says secret of our success, I think, right? Our secret of our success level Patreon supporters, John Henderson, Craig Coletta, Marcus Taylor, Tony Great, Matt Marino, Nick Guillory, and Brandon Greer. Thank you
Awesome
so much.
bunch of names. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. And hey, if you'd like to support us the way these folks do, please go to patreon.com/1980s now. You can give us $1 or you can give us $1,000 every month.
Spread out over the course of your lifetime, perhaps.
Yes. Just like we're socking it to the millennials and Gen Zs. I'm going to put you in debt.
We know you can't afford it. So boomers, help us out.
Do it. Yeah, and if you're old and about to die, leave us some money.
If you're a
leave
wealthy
public
congressman
office.
who won't get out of the damn office,
Yes, you owe us.
right? It's a subsidy if they do it.
What else? Oh, hey, but if you can't do that, we understand. There's plenty of free ways to support us, including just letting other folks know about the show, emailing us, sharing Facebook posts, following us on YouTube, that sort of thing. Or you can just leave us a comment like Neon Vandal did on our recent interview with Lucinda Dickey of Breakin' and Breakin' 2 and Ninja 3. Neon Vandal wrote on YouTube, great interview. Lucinda always comes across as such a lovely woman. I grew up in the UK and saw the, quote, serious hip-hop things like Wild Style and Style Wars first, and then the more mainstream things a bit later. I actually prefer Breakin' over Beat Street because it showed what was happening on the West Coast. Those Breakin' films are great, low-budget, feel-good street dance musicals, both with stellar soundtracks. Love them both. TKO, which stands for Turbo, Kelly, and Ozone. Yeah, I recall also, I think most folks that grew up, well, he grew up in the UK, but on the East Coast, yeah, we had seen Wild Style before Breakin'. Should probably keep these till I finish. Really, what do you? Star Wars. Yeah, of course.
He's like, oh yeah,
Wild
I had
Style.
3 more emails on this piece of paper I threw away.
Wild Style and Star Wars before seeing they came out earlier in the 80s than these other films, and they were more gritty. One of them was a fictionalized account. One was more of a documentary, but both showed hip hop long before it reached the mainstream. Anyway, that's that. Hey, we will talk about other things some other time. And Kat will may be here. I don't know.
Maybe she'll be here next time. That'd be nice.
Yeah. Unless she has anything else to do.
That's unfair now. Come on. See, that's you picking on her because you love her. We know what you're doing.
I know.
You just have to
I'm
call it out so it
horrible
doesn't
like
seem
that,
mean. Yes.
I wish I weren't like this. Hey, we will talk to you next time on 1980s Now.
Roll out.
Very good. All right. I'm going to stop recording here, I think.
Yeah, you oughta.
It's been a long time. I got to check on my kid, too.
We miss Kat, too, Miss So.
Yeah. We were adequate. Nice.
There's Jason. Jason was the one that said bollocks. He's actually the last year he's been he's on a work exchange program in the UK teaching. Well, he and his wife working in the same school, teaching music and teaching library science together, and their whole family was living over there. So he knows all about the old flipperoo.
That's a great opportunity. Wow, they do that for adults, exchange programs like that. That's super cool.
Well, it's not so much exchange as it is a remote opportunity to bring in other cultures to teach at their schools or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm probably wildly mischaracterizing what it is that he's doing, but in general terms, third person removed, that's basically what's going on. But it has meant his entire family has lived in the UK now for the past year, which is really cool.
You have him living in England and he's really teaching English at a local high school. Kyle just writes ... Yeah, there you go, Kyle. And I know what you mean. You didn't say it, but I know what you mean. And according to John, it's got to be negative.
Yeah.
Something bad.
Thumbs up to you, Kyle.
Yeah. Hey, it's for
Get the double Fonzarelli.
Yeah. Oh, Brandon says he got his package safe and sound yesterday. Awesome, Brandon. Yeah, it took me a while to get that to you, but I'm so glad you got it.
Kind of personal. Oh, I thought he meant his package.
No, you remember Brandon won our last time.
Yes,
we gave away something.
No, I knew what you meant. I was just being.
All right. Oh, Miss So wants to know: do we call our spouses dude? That seems to be a trend with the folk. No.
No. What do you call your wife? Easy. All
right. Let me see. In public, other people call. Hey, honey, baby, something like that. I think
I use all of them. Probably I use hun, babe, baby, sweetie,
sweetheart, maybe. Yeah.
Sweetie is probably the most passive aggressive of them. When you go, sweetie.
Oh no.
Honey is fine. Babe is fine. Baby's okay. Hey, baby, we did. But sweetie, it's almost always said like that. It's incredulous.
Oh, sweetie. Oh, John, you're playing with fire there.
Right. Yeah, I know. But sometimes you mess with the bull, you get the horny.
Yes, if you're lucky, I guess. Or your wife's cheating on you. If you
Maybe that's what.
Your wife's cheating on you, John, because you call her sweetie. Yeah, all right.
Damn,
all right, hey,
sweetie.
Thanks everybody for hanging out. We're so thoroughly grateful for you doing that. We will see you again next time. Love to everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you.